the first thing I want to talk about is how to find like-hearted friends.
Yeah.
Because you, in your TED Talk, you gave a speech about networking specifically for Gen Z. And we live in a loneliness epidemic. People are more lonely than ever.
Yep.
We're more connected than ever by the internet, but we're more disconnected than ever by emotions and our feelings.
100%.
What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think for me it starts with deciding who you want to be, like your identity. And that doesn't mean that you necessarily have to like be that, right? Like I could say I'm a videographer, right? But I don't have a camera yet. I don't have the skill set, but like you are that. So I think it first starts by identifying like what you want as an individual. And that's sometimes the hardest things. They all change as well. Like it doesn't have to be locked in, but I think that's one of the things for me that helped me find those who are like kind of like you said, like-hearted friends, was the fact that I just said, I am this, or I am doing this, or I am working on this. Like that was, my thing. And then by extension, as you identify as that, you start to find people that also identify or have similarities in that space, right? So a lot of my videography, photography friends, a lot of my business friends now have all come from the fact that, I'm a business owner. I own this business. Oh, so am I. Like, what are some of the struggles you're going through? I have those too. And you start to build that common ground with someone. And ultimately, that's all you need, right? To start that kind of friendship, relationship, whatever it is, that common ground with someone to then extend and see kind of how far that can go.
Yeah. In your TED Talk, you said, and I know this to be true, that common ground leads to deeper relationships faster.
100%.
And the internet, which we've deemed as this thing that's made us more lonely, which I think it has,
Mm-hmm.
it is also the greatest tool of finding common ground.
1000%, yeah.
Even me sitting down with you, no one told me to interview you.
Yep.
I wouldn't have just stumbled upon you. Mm. I mean, we went to the same college, but I never ran into you once.
Yeah.
But I found common ground because I went on your Instagram. I saw your entrepreneurial nature. I saw your adventurous nature.
Yeah.
And therefore, I thought this guy will resonate with shooting a podcast with me.
100%. And also, like what you sent to me this morning, you sent me the notion of like information that you'd drawn about me from just my socials, like LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, all of these different places. And like some of that information is a little bit outdated, right? I haven't posted for a while on like a couple of platforms. But it's like you were able to deduce like an entire page of information from me, which like you said, you had never been able to before. And it allows us to immediately when we get here, we have a common ground. We can start a conversation and sit here and record an hour podcast, no problem. Yeah.
So what Rio's referring to is I sent him the podcast research this episode. I don't usually do that.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm testing out because the theory is that if the guest believes that I care about them, then they're more willing to open up, more willing to share their story.
Of course,
So I used to not share, because it does feel a little weird. I'm sharing the research that I've done about you, and it feels like I'm also losing the shock factor of things I might bring up.
Yeah.
But what I hope is that if someone sees that I sat down for a few hours and made a whole page about their life, hopefully that tells them that I care about them.
No, I loved it. Yeah, I thought it was great. And it allows you to come more prepared into the conversation and remove any unknowns from what we're going to kind of talk about. And you might still bring stuff up I might bring stuff up that surprises you, but it's like you have that ground. And yeah, like you said, it's nice to feel like I feel valued. You sat down, you took the time to research me before I came on and spoke to your audience. And it's like, I think that's awesome. I think I really appreciate that from a guest standpoint, because it's like, you took the time, and that's awesome,
Well, so going back to the networking thing.
Yeah.
Going back to the networking thing, a lot of people say like find. They use the word find.
Yeah.
How do I find better friends? Maybe there's someone who is our age, they're in college, they're partying, but they want to find entrepreneurial friends. But they want to travel the world, but none of their friends are willing to take that risk. And I think something you said was really important is that it comes down to your identity. When you go, I say this a lot, it's something I feel about this a lot, but when you ask yourself, position it as a matter of finding, then it's very rare that you will quote unquote find. Finding implies that you just run into people, and even if you do just run into people, if you don't have the traits that they're looking for, why would they
Yeah.
to stay in your network. And so that's what I think the identify thing, which you were really keen to point out, is that it's not that you actually have achieved something. When I say I'm a podcaster, which I am, that doesn't mean I have 100,000 monthly listeners.
Yeah.
I'm doing podcasts and big guests, but just by identifying that, I'm going to attract other podcasters, other YouTubers, and that's the thing is that people, I think because of social media, they have this imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I can't identify as a YouTuber because I don't have X subscribers, or I can't identify as this because I don't. But in reality, your identity is your beliefs about yourself.
Yeah.
So if you believe it, then it's your identity.
1000%. And I think taking that a little bit further as well, right? When you're at that stage, right, particularly, and I love what you said there, of like people feel they have this imposter, they feel like they need to have got 100,000 monthly listeners before they can say I'm a podcaster. It's like, no, if you're filming a podcast sat here right now, I'm a podcast guest. You know, I never thought I would even say that, but I'm a podcast guest on this podcast. That's awesome. And it's like, then when you get into those communities, you're at a networking event, you're with friends or whatever, and you tell a group of people or you speak to someone new and you say, oh yeah, I'm a podcaster. If you have not, quote unquote, achieved something yet in terms of you haven't got 100,000 monthly listeners or whatever, and you say you're a podcaster and someone asks you about it and you're like, yeah, I mean, it's just starting, like, there's two reactions that someone will have, right? If they're established in your industry. So if you go and you speak to Joe Rogan, right? There'll be two reactions. And for me, that immediately turns me on or off, or whether I'm going to enjoy the relationship with that person, right? And the first reaction, if they're established and you're not, the first reaction could be that they're like, oh, that's really cool. And then they kind of brush you aside and like on to the next. The second one thing is they could be genuinely very, very excited for you and about the journey that you're about to set on and the struggles and stuff that you're about to go through, right? And those are the people that I find that I really like strongly identify with and strongly like, that's awesome. You know, no matter the stage that you're at in terms of the journey you're going through with whatever you're striving towards and whatever you identify as, it should be encouraged and you should be like cheered on. And there are going to be people that don't do that, and that's great. You can use that as motivation, but ultimately those ones that are like, that's so cool. You know, even when I was starting Market U and we were a very young editing agency and I'd have sales call after sales call and we weren't established and it was so hard to get that sale. It was like those people that are like, you know what, this is awesome. I love that you're striving. I can see how hungry you are. I'm going to give you the opportunity. If you guys mess it up, I'm not going to continue it. It's like, that's totally fine. But they give you that opportunity to kind of grow and take to that next level. And so I think that's like kind of the key thing for me when I'm networking or speaking to people, where I really start to like identify with someone, is whether they're stoked about that journey.
So it's interesting. You're saying that it's worth it to identify as it anyways, because even if someone who's more established, who's accomplished more, even if they go, oh, this guy's claiming to be a podcaster, he's claiming to be a YouTuber, but he doesn't have 100,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
That's not the type of person you want to network with anyways.
No.
So you should always just like own it and hold it.
100%, 1,000% you should own what you identify as. And if that changes as well, that's like totally fine, right? We're all trying to figure out our pathway and where to go, what we want to do. And so, yeah, you should always strongly, and that's also where I feel like it switches between like, you don't find, like, I think that's an entire myth of like just finding people. You don't run into people, right? You attract them, like 1,000%. And you attract them through the conversations you have, with the things you identify as, and then the common interests that you have because of that, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, there's other videographers that I don't identify with and don't share the same vision as because they're just in different industries. You know, they might be in like Hollywood film. I'm not in Hollywood film, you know? So it's like, I might not identify with those people. But it's like the community that I hold really close to me in video and photo and in business are all people that, you know, have those similar sort of beliefs in the same space, you know?
I have an interesting metaphor.
Go for it.
Say there's two people, they're trying to quit alcohol or quit nicotine or whatever. They're trying to quit something. They both stop drinking for 30 days. The first person says, when he's around alcohol, he's at a party, he says, I'm trying to stop drinking. I haven't drank in 30 days. The second person says, same thing, they haven't drank in 30 days, says, I do not drink.
Yeah.
The first person is identifying as a quitter. They're saying, I'm trying to stop drinking. I haven't drank in 30 days. They're counting the days. and therefore they're identifying as a quitter, whereas the second person is identifying as a sober person.
Exactly.
Even though they're the same. And it's interesting, there's studies that say if you're a criminal and you get convicted and you get called a criminal, you're way more likely to go commit another crime than if you don't get called a criminal. And so it's kind of like I take that and apply it to what we're talking about with your identity and friendships. It's like if I go around saying, oh, I want to be a podcast. I filmed, you're my 67th podcast.
Yeah.
I filmed 67 podcasts. That's pretty legit.
That's amazing, yeah.
99% of people quit before they hit 20.
Yeah.
Real podcast app. But I could say, well, because I don't have 100,000 monthly listeners, I want to be a podcaster. I hope that I'll be a podcaster one day. I'm like the guy who says I'm quitting alcohol. Like, it doesn't, I decide if I'm a podcaster or not, but I'm choosing to identify with someone who hasn't reached the goal when I could easily be like, I'm a podcaster. I've interviewed 67 people. That's better than 99% of the, and so, again, like you said, you don't find friends, you attract them.
Yeah.
So if I'm saying I want to be a podcaster, then I'm going to attract people who don't necessarily believe in themselves, who are rookies. But if I'm saying I am a podcaster, then I'm going to attract better guests. I'm going to attract better people who are further along in their route. And so,
exactly. And that's actually from a book I'm listening to at the moment, Atomic Habits. If you
oh, wow.
Yes. So that is the chapter I just went over is exactly that, about how performing great habits, like getting to the direction and kind of place you want to go, starts with identification. So like who you identify as, and what you value as important. That's kind of where that starts. So yeah, I love that.
In your TED Talk, you mentioned that if you were to get $10,000, you would become 3% happier. And you said there is a much easier way to become 6% happier. What is that?
God, did it? You're putting me on the spot. The TED Talk was a long time ago.
It was something to do with, I'll jog your memory. It was something to do with the third degree of separation of friends. So maybe I'll explain the 6 degrees of separation while you think about it. 6 degrees of separation says that I can reach anyone in the world through 6 degrees of separation. So 1 degree of separation would be Rio is a 0 degree. He's my friend.
Yep.
If he has a friend that I want to meet, that's 1 degree.
Yep.
If he has a friend that I want to meet and his friend that I want to meet as a friend, that's 2 degrees.
Yep.
And then so on in 3 degrees. And what it's saying that I can meet anyone in the world, let's say Drake, Justin Bieber, through 6 degrees of separation. That's the theory. Now, you said something interesting that you said, there's a very popular quote. The quote goes, you are the product of the 5 people you surround yourself most with. And you said, there's an interesting quote that rallies off that says, if you show me the people 3 degrees of separation away from you, I will tell you how you're feeling.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah, so it's like you said, it's all about kind of that community that surrounds you and how that energy affects kind of your trajectory, basically, right? Because no matter someone's position, it's more about your trajectory, right? You could be a millionaire and earning $1 million a month, but you could be spending over that, right?
Yeah.
In terms of, and so your trajectory is downward, right? Yeah. It's going to a bad place where your trajectory is up. And so what that refers to in terms of the 3 degrees of separation is, you've got your community of people that's your 0 degree, but those ones that are 3 degrees of separations away from you are also inherently affecting that 0 degree of separation of community around you. And so therefore, like, being acutely aware of those energies and of those people that affect your life is like kind of really where, that was coming from in a TED Talk.
I think it honestly makes sense because even when I was getting excited to meet you, it's like I'm seeing the crazy things that you've done, the companies that you've worked with, the people that you've networked with. And I always I consider my friends your friends and your friends my friends. Even if we've never talked about that, that's how I look at life. So it's like, if you're associating yourself with people who have accomplished great things, and then I have you on my podcast, I feel the hope of those people.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, they're accomplishing great things and they're Rio's friends. So therefore, I'm in a world where I can accomplish great things. And
exactly.
We are hope-driven creatures.
Yeah.
We get, it's statistically proven that we're happier chasing a goal than we are achieving a goal.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking at my third degree of separation, the friends of your friends, that is hope. I'm looking at a goal that I'm pursuing a goal rather than someone who's rich and they've already achieved their goals and they feel kind of more hopeless because it's not as exciting to look forward to.
No, 100%. Yeah, and it's like and it goes back to what you're talking about in terms of like loneliness and like our generation. I think it's so true, right? You know, of just how impactful being connected but not like feeling together, not feeling part of community is. And yeah, I'm so grateful for the people that I have around me currently, and I will have, you know, in the future as well, because it's very much like that. It's like I'm not only excited about what they're doing as individuals, but also the community they're surrounded by and the energy that they get from them. And, you know, seeing friends going and shooting the X Games and seeing friends out in Cape Town and working for like amazing brand names. It's just like that's exciting, and that's their community. I've got nothing to really do with that, but the fact that I can see that and get excited about the things that they're doing and the people that they're surrounding themselves with, that's when you start to create that like kind of exponential motivation and growth within a community.
You put yourself in their world.
Exactly.
And their world feels exciting.
Exactly.